Hi guys, like to welcome you guys all back to my channel. I think the lighting has just shifted. Brace with it. The weather is doing things, so my light's adjusting. But yeah, so we are here with my best reads of 2018. So as usual, just a disclaimer, these are my opinions and these are based off of the 65 books that I've read this year, and I'm only referencing the new books that I read in 2018. Now, new for me means it could have been released this year, or it could have just mean that it was my first time reading it. But as usual, these opinions are my own, so don't freak out if your favorite book isn't on my list. That's why it's your list. So let's just go ahead and get started. I'm doing this in no particular order just because it's hard for me to pick an order like right now. But obviously on this list, we have the Three Dark Crowns series that I recently started. I think I started it during Booktubeathon this year. So for those who don't know or who haven't been watching my recap videos, I'm obsessed with this series. I realized very quickly that this Queendom series is the kind of fantasy book that I have just been obsessed over, and it's pretty much kept my fantasy kick going for most of this part of the year. Also, for those who don't know, it's 3 books so far. I think the 4th one is coming out in June, I think, and then 2 novellas. Even the novellas are good, especially the Oracle Queen one. So I'm still standing for Kendara Blake. I love it. Thank you so much for writing this series. As soon as the whole series comes out, I plan on getting like the whole collection in just one big old box set. And yeah, so there's that. Another series that is actually very old, apparently, and I think the first book came out in like 2013, and that's the Lunar Chronicles. I'd never read the Lunar Chronicles. My whole thing with that was that I felt like maybe because I was older, I wasn't going to enjoy it, so I ignored it for a long time. And I don't know who I was talking to. I was talking to somebody, and they were talking about how like the Lunar Chronicles is still good even now. Like she was saying, we were talking about different book series that we would love to reread. Obviously Harry Potter was on our list, but she started talking about the Lunar Chronicles, so I picked it up and I binged listened to the audiobooks for this series. Highly recommend all the audiobooks. They're all on Hoopla. So if you've never ever gotten your hands on Lunar Chronicles, highly recommend it. Definitely one of my favorite series of this year. I even went and got the graphic novels that follow all the events from the Lunar Chronicles. I wish we could get like not a Lunar Chronicles like part 2, but more, I would like another fairy tale compilation of that style. I guess if that makes sense. Like the idea of mixing sci-fi with fairy tales, it turned out to actually be a really good idea. So I really liked it. I still highly recommend it to you guys. A standout for me this year was Dread Nation. You guys have heard me talk about this book, and I think I read it in April, I think. Surprised at how much I enjoyed this book. Surprised in so many ways. A quick recap. Basically, it is the Civil War, and as the Civil War was ending, zombies attacked. So any part of that where like the best way to describe it, the main character is such a strong individual character that I immediately was in love with her. I loved everything about the side characters that supported her. The whole storyline, they still kept the idea of racism and about how white Christians back in the day would use God's word to manipulate people into thinking that them mistreating humans was legit. She touched on so many of those topics, but I'm obsessed and I need part 2. Like I need part 2 now. In fact, I need to go look up when part 2 is coming out because that needs to go on my anticipated reading list. But yeah, I'm very excited to see what happens next. I do want to know if they survived. So many questions, not enough book. If you were turned off by the whole zombie idea, like the Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies movie, kind of like if you thought it was like that, it's not. I promise. It's 20 times better. I promise you'll like it. If you don't like it, come back and tell me, and I'll be shocked on why you didn't. Another read that this was actually on my anticipated reads for this year, so I am so glad. It's Shadow of the Fox that I just recently read. I am addicted. There is a book coming out next year. I've already pre-ordered that book already because I just need to know what happened. So basically, this book is about an ancient scroll that can basically change the fate of the world. And one piece of the scroll is in the hands of a young woman who is a katsune, which is basically like a spirit. and she ends up encountering the samurai who is known as the Kage Demon Slayer, and the story evolves around these two trying to get this scroll. So I don't want to give away too much. If you like, this was one of my, because I've been trying to expand my reading range, where instead of just reading, I'm not going to lie, most of my favorite authors before I started this challenge for myself were white women. And I'm not saying that white authors are bad. I'm just saying that I never made it a point to step out of my comfort zone of reading to expand it. And I'm glad that I did, because this particular book is not only written by an Asian woman, but it's about like Japanese folklore. So if you enjoy that kind of stuff, highly recommend it. I wish that this was a movie, because this would be a really dope movie. I kind of imagine it to be like Kobu and the Two Strings. Like if they could animate this book like the animation from Kobu, sold. But yeah, the second book is coming out too, so very excited for that. Obviously, one of my favorite books of 2018 is Children of Blood and Bone. I cannot tell you how many people I've recommended this book to, and how many people have come back to me and they were like, you're totally right. After reading this book, for those who have not read this book yet and believe that it's not worth the hype, basically this book is Africa meets Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like it's almost a Last Airbender-esque thing. And if you know the author, she's actually very much into Avatar, so you could see elements of the Avatar in this book. I highly, highly recommend this book. I've already pre-ordered Children of Virtue and Vengeance, which is her second, which is the sequel to this. It's already pre-ordered, girl. Like, I'm so ready for this book. I really cannot begin to explain to you the excitement and the happiness that I felt reading this book. Plus, like, the happiness that I have when I tell other people about this book. Yeah, Zele is my spirit animal. I, too, share her Orisha. So, like, yeah. Another new release this year that I loved was Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. Loved this book. It's written more in a slam poetry form. So with that being said, I highly recommend the audiobook for this. Listening to it as if somebody was reading slam poetry does so much for the imagery, and just the visual that you get from listening to this book is phenomenal. I felt everything about this book. I truly, truly recommend it. I love it. She's got another book coming out next year that I'm also going to get. I really hope that it's written in slam poetry, but if it's not, I'm still going to read it. Another book that I actually read while I was in Morocco when we were on our bus trips is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I actually was very hesitant about this book. The premise seemed a little weird. It's about a girl. It's about a girl and her sister who travel to this, I guess we're going to call it like an island, to participate in this game. And it turns out that a part of the game is her sister. So she actually has to play the game to save her sister. So I felt the suspense of this book was perfect. I found myself trying to guess, who was involved and like what they should and shouldn't be doing. And I was always wrong, which I actually enjoy being wrong when I do these kind of books. I felt like there were multiple suspense moments. Also, I listened to a part of it via audiobook, and I was like in my car on like 2 scenes. So I felt like that's a good indication that I was really very much into this book. And I have Legendary. I do plan on reading Legendary because Finale comes out next year, and I just want the whole collection. So Caraval. Another book that okay, this is gonna sound terrible, but I was in a training for my job, and the training was gruesomely boring. Like, it was hard to stay awake. So I ended up downloading this book as an ebook onto my iPad, and I was reading it when I should have been taking notes in the class. And that book is The Bells by Danielle Clayton, which turned out to be a really good book. I judged it. I'm not gonna lie, because I think I saw it in like everybody's subscription box. And sometimes when the book is in everyone's subscription box, it kind of isn't always like the best book. So I judged it. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I definitely judged it, and I was wrong. I really enjoyed The Bells. The sequel comes out next year. It's this idea of a world where your beauty can be altered. And there were trends today where we're like high heels or like Doc Martens with like cat ears and all that stuff. No, their trends was like blue skin, pout, pink lips, like things like that were the things that they changed. And it just turned into this whole story where I was pretty much invested in this girl's life. So I highly recommend that book. I just needed to get that out and just be honest with you guys. Another book that was on my highly anticipated reads book was A Blade So Black. And I, again, will be totally honest. My original reason for putting A Blade So Black on my anticipated reading list was A, it was by Ella McKinney, and B, it was a black girl. That was pretty much my only thing, because I like Alice in Wonderland, but my favorite, like, classic books are actually, like, Pride and Prejudice and things. I like Alice in Wonderland, but I'm not, like, super pressed about it. However, I ended up liking A Blade So Black, not because it was a retelling, because really it wasn't a retelling. It was more of a reimagined. So you have Alice. She is known as a dream walker, where she kills nightmares. Nightmares are manifested in Wonderland based off of the feelings and the pain of humans. So they manifest themselves as nightmares in Wonderland, and then they come over to the earth and like they eat people based on their misery, that kind of thing. So she, as a dream walker, defeats them. So thinking about it like that, it's more of a reimagine. You still have a lot of the same characters. There's still Hatta, Maddie, there's still all of them. But it's more of a reimagine. Plus, old girl is totally into cosplay and makes tons of Sailor Moon references. And I'm here for that. But it turned out that this book, especially the ending, I wasn't ready for the ending. I felt like it dragged a little bit in the beginning, because in my head, once I figured out that she was a dreamwalker, I assumed I was about to be reading about epic fight battles throughout the whole book. And I'm just prefacing this now. That's not how it is. But I promise you, read the whole book. It gets lit, and then you're left with your jaw dropped wide open trying to figure out what the heck. So I do need the second book to this series. I'm very excited. I was happy that another book on my anticipated list made the cut. Another book that I'm including on my best reads of 2018 is American Marriage by Tayari Jones. I know I didn't read a lot of contemporary fiction books this year because I just haven't been in a contemporary mood. But when I was, I picked up this book, and this book was given to me as a birthday present. So I do thank you for that. It was really good. This story is about a couple who, while they were newlyweds, the husband was wrongly accused of rape and put in jail. And he was put in jail in Alabama, but they lived in Georgia. So the wife ends up going back home to Georgia, and it depicts what happens in the first 5 years of his incarceration. It also depicts what happens when he got out and what happened to their marriage. Now, I will say that reading the book, I was thoroughly invested in all of the characters. I was yelling at certain characters in my car because, yes, I recommend the audiobook because you get every perspective from a different voice. So I recommend it. I yelled at characters. I was pissed. I was happy. I was like talking to these people like I could see them, or like I was watching TV. And then the ending blowed. I hated the ending. I felt like it was too happily ever after. But I also understand why she did it, because everybody has their own definition of happily ever after. I have a whole review about this book on my channel in my book review section. So yeah, you could check it out. But I still really enjoyed the book, so that's why it's on this list. The last book on my best reads this year is Furyborn, and I listened to this book via audiobook, and I read parts of the book. I will say, in the beginning, it's very confusing, so if you're going to listen to it via audiobook, I kind of recommend that you read the first, I think it's the prelude. Read it first, because it's confusing. It's actually a flash forward of a situation, and then it flashes back. So it takes place in one setting and then 1,000 years after that situation. So you hear the story about the present. So that's 1,000 years present, and then this 1,000 years back. I know that sounds so confusing, but it's actually a really good story. It focuses on two queens. And again, y'all know me. I'm totally down for these queendoms. It's something about powerful women and fantasy stories with magic that this year have just taken over my list, and I have no shame for it. I'm totally here for it. So that was my best reads of 2018. What were yours? Leave them down below in the comments section. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until the next time, guys, bye.